Welcome. It is Wednesday again, and we are here for Home's Tea Time with our special guest. And looks like she is ready to rock. Awesome. Welcome, everybody. So I'm going to get Nicole on view here. There we go. Great. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. I hope it's you can see me because I'm straight in the sun. It's kind of windy and I like being out here, but it's really nice to see you. I've missed seeing you through the screen.
Touching. Yes.
I am gonna just turn the volume up a little bit and wait a few minutes to let everybody bump in, and then we can get started. And I'll introduce you and all that stuff. So
yeah. I'm outside too, but we're close to the airport, so I've got all these loud planes. Like, no, close all the windows.
Close them up. Well, we're gonna keep my fingers crossed that my 5-year-old doesn't come running out wanting something. Want some ice cream or something. Well, welcome. We can get started. Welcome to Tea Time. I'm Crystal Soul Hayes, and this lovely woman mama in front of me is Nicole, Miss Dancing Moon. And Nicole is a former professional dancer, wife, and mother of 2 who emphasizes empowerment and education on women's voices and their rights through movement, vaginal steaming, mentorship coaching, birth doula work, and spirituality. One of the most rewarding yet challenging times of a woman's life can be when she becomes a mother. Not because of the demand of her time and energy on her family, but because of the lack of time spent healing, relearning, and redefining her new metamorphosed self. Nicole's aim is to bring awareness to what each woman's needs are and to establish how these are realistically attainable for her to shine in her brilliance. So welcome, Miss Nicole.
Thank you, hon.
Yeah, so just want to let everybody know who's watching to, if you have questions for Nicole, to hold on to those until the end, and then we can get to those when we are completed with our conversation. So I just want to start by speaking to this idea of lifting up all mamas, right? We are going through, well, actually, I want to take a step back because, you work with women who are going through the process of birthing and after and supporting them through this process. And I just kind of want to hear your take on collectively what we're all living through. And is there similarity or parallels to a birthing process, and kind of speak to that, because I'm just curious because I know how I feel, but I want to hear how you feel about all this.
No, that's a loaded question.
Well, just kind of the surface, like the birthing process, right? And someone who works with women who, and a mother yourself, like going through the birthing, the postpartum, and kind of building support around any idea of life, right? So yeah, so I want to kind of start there and then shift into this value of lifting up, kind of all mothers, right? As we dive into our topics.
Sure. So it can be, from what I've seen and from what I know, and even from what there's just so many layers that can affect someone's birth experience, from childhood trauma to current partnership, if any, to financial means to finding a voice to ask for what it is that you desire in your birth and postpartum experience, to, you know, do you have a community around you? Do you have friends? Are you isolated from your nearest and dearest friends and family? You know, and the word isolated can mean so many different things right now, not just, you know, a distant sense, but especially as we're talking about COVID, there can just be so many layers of upon how it's laid out. So one thing that I'm really trying to stress with clients right now is, what do you truly, truly, truly long for? And trying not to let anything that our current environment is going through affect that. So whether that be the location of their birth, whether that be who's allowed to be in the birth room with them, regardless of their location, you know, what their postpartum support looks like. You know, again, just so many different layers. And I think now more so just because the energy is so heightened right now. Not that it wasn't an issue before, not that I wasn't asking this of mamas before or really, you know, inviting them to do it before. But I think that, you know, there is such a call and such a pull right now for people to truly come into their full being. And so I think, again, just that awareness is very present for everyone right now.
Yeah, I kind of reflect before we were going to come onto this call. I was kind of reflecting on my first birth experience and, you know, planning for it, or, you know, kind of what that was, you know, the plan, right? I didn't even, I mean, truly, I didn't even know, you know, what a doula was. Like, I mean, I was kind of exposed to it as I was prepping for it, but I mean, a doula, kind of where I grew up and was raised, it's like that wasn't a natural conversation to have. Like, so all of that, and building support around your birth and after, really more so, like how to be supported after. It's kind of even just out of our, for a lot of people, just out of our understanding of what the possibilities are to be supported.
Right. I
Right.
similar experience. I didn't know anything about the birth world before, like, before becoming a mama. I was probably the first of my dear friends. Um, so there was going on, you know, there weren't a lot of conversations like you. I didn't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Difference between a midwife and an OB. I just, you know, initially just going with my gut and got educated after the fact a little bit, so to speak. Yeah. So I was in the same boat as you there, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I recall, like, you know, of course, going through this, okay, this is what I want. And, you know, the idea of, like, I think I had gotten turned on to like a water birth and all of that. And it was sounded, oh, it's hard to hear Nicole with the wind. Oh, is it, do you think it's on my end it's cutting out? I don't know. But I am getting a little bit of choppy on when you're speaking. I'm wondering, let me go move inside real quick in case it is the wind on my end, because it might be.
Okay. And while
Sorry.
I'm going to change something on my settings. So
Okay.
hopefully it'll go away.
We can correct that. Yeah. Okay. Oh, wait. My notes are over here. Hold on. All right. Here we go. See if that helps it a little bit. Yeah, just the idea of, you know, okay, so these are options, or these are things, not even options, but they're available. And then, like, what can you realistically incorporate into your birth plan? Because I remember for us at the time, like hiring a doula was really a stretch financially, even for us, you know? And so it's like, how do we continue to support and widen the awareness of like the work that you do and be able to bridge to others that this can become a barrier? And can you speak a little bit on that? Because I know you do some work with different organizations that are helping to bridge that so that all mamas are have more access to those types of those resources.
Yeah. So one group that I'm working with right now, Frontline Doulas, we're actually offering free birth doula support for specifically African American mamas. So we have a total of 40 spaces. I think last I heard we were about half. It was for those with due dates between September and November. And there were no like financial qualifiers. The only qualifier was, of African American descent. And that's it. Really just trying to hone in on that community, just because, as we may or may not know, the mortality rates are realistically higher for African American mamas when it comes to birthing. And I can barely get the words out of my mouth because it's frustrating, and it really angers me that that's a reality. But I am grateful for the space in this organization offering this to people.
Mm-hmm.
I know from a personal standpoint, I also do offer my services on a sliding scale. So I do try to make myself accessible to those who really desire the support. And I think that's also part of it is, are you committed to doing the work and committed to having the support of someone there? Because sometimes people say they do, but then they don't accept their, and sometimes that can be hard. Don't know how to ask for the help. I know.
I think that's I think you hit on something because, one, as women, I think many of us come from that place of like, oh, I can do it. Taking on that and like, I can do anything kind of just conditioned place. But also not knowing how to ask or what to ask for. And then depending on your circumstances and what you're exposed to or what you even know is available, like those are layers of kind of the barrier that really need to we have to like break through those pieces with mothers or women who are becoming mothers and that sort of thing. Don't you feel?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I also see it as not only the elements that we've already talked about, but, do you come from a background that is encouraging of groups of women? Did your mother or whatever, female support that you had in your life as a child, if anyone, did you have anyone significant to help you and guide you? And thus, did they have friends? And then did they have friends? Did you have your own tribe growing up as a child and as a young adult? Because I think that can also add to your desire to want to be connected in such a time, and your ability to reach out and to ask for help. So I think, we kind of we started to talk about actually creating spaces, and the desire to create spaces for us to connect as mamas. And I think it can start there. It starts early. That's something that I know that I'm trying to build for both, obviously for my daughter in particular, but even for my son, and he stay connected into the ladies in his life.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think you touch on a good point because that relational women, how you were supported or not supported and how you moved through kind of developing into a woman and being okay to ask for help and knowing what's available and kind of how to move through that. I think it's definitely it's needed. I think for myself, I feel like I struggled quite a bit just based on how women, it's like the competitiveness of women, and depending on where you grow up and how you see things, or are you supporting each other, or are you just like competitive against each other? I think all of those things play into, right, how we show up in any space. Yeah. So, but also, like you said, it's definitely a good thing to have these conversations, and have this a part of even the male, your sons or those in your family that are growing up into birthing us a new relations with and how we show up in any space.
Right. Just space to be heard, just creating space to be respected and to be honored and and that starts early. I believe, I believe that really does start early. And especially so extremely important during a woman's transition period from not being a mama to being a mama, you know.
Yeah, and something that has come up for me recently, as we're talking about creating these safe spaces for women and for, um, just in development, really, these safe spaces for children, and bridging cross culturally, and what that looks like. It's something that's come up for me through that conversation of these cross cultural spaces, and you and I being a part of this collective, and other women, there is this beautiful blend of women from quite a few different cultures, which it happened organically and naturally. And I think, it's just been really beautiful to reflect on, and see that as we're forming and going forward, that this is actually one of the threads that has come through. But I guess the main piece that I've been reflecting on about this idea is, you know, I can see like absolutely why Black women stay with Black women, and Latina women stay with Latina women. And like, we kind of all, if you're open to kind of banding together and creating the space, like, we kind of initially go to our individual community, in that sense of like, we're safe, we can trust, right? There's a level of trust and faith in stepping into something that is outside of our culture. And I'm just curious, like, how you feel about, like, how do we bridge those conversations, or those spaces, so that it is an open space to all of us kind of lifting up together into a communal space, right? I mean, I think some things are meant to be its own culture, and honor that and respect that. But then how do we evolve into that next space of where we really are becoming this kind of melting pot, and we have the equity and we have the accessibility that we can build upon? Like, I know it's loaded, but I think these are all like just deeper questions that I've been reflecting on. I'm just curious to know how you feel about it, or where we are with it, and how do we even approach it?
Mm-hmm. I felt that it's truly individual. At this point, it's truly individual. Again, I think it also goes back to, how did you grow up? Did you grow up with predominantly your own culture around you? And are you really only of one culture? For myself, I'm very mixed. So the people surrounding me were very much and of different cultures. And, I have a lot of dear friends who did not necessarily connect with people within their own race or their own culture. Their closest friends were outside of that,
Yeah.
and continue to be. So I think it is individual. It's in terms of what it is that you're used to. But then I also believe that some of us have this deep longing and deep desire that maybe we're just born with, that really are drawn to bring people together, and desire to have a rainbow collective, you know, around them, or to create spaces of others, you know. And I think the more that we see it, the more drawn we will be towards it. So, you know, I believe that everything begins with ourselves. And so the more that we can create that space for ourselves, the more it will continue to layer upon layer for others that we know, the ripple effect, right? For others in our community, you know, for our future generations, you know, et cetera. So I think we just have to take a look at ourselves and, you know, is that something that we truly desire? And, you know, I hope so, you know, my heart really hopes so, you know, so yeah.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that you voice that and you bring that back to just the individual, and then, you know, really being able to see some of these examples forming and showing up in our communities and in our culture in a way that is shifting and really changing the expression of community space and healing spaces. That's really beautiful. So kind of as we're in this kind of, you know, idea of this healing space, and I just want to talk a little bit more about or dive into the idea of accessible preventative wellness and decolonizing the space, because I think it's definitely becoming more transparent, the, you know, the different systems in our world, and, you know, seeing the wellness space, and like, what has your experience been like with it? Because it is a colony in itself, right? And it's for the most part tailored to a certain demographic in a way.
Right.
So how do, you know, I just want to kind of dive there and hear your thoughts and feelings on that, and we can chat a little bit about it.
Sure. Again, I kind of also, it goes back to where's your, because I think there are leaders, ancestors in every culture that have promoted wellness. And so I believe that as an individual, where are you looking to? Who are your guides? Who are your mentors? You know, are they only one specific color? Are they only open to serving one specific financial demographic? Are they only doing X, Y, and Z? Or are they opening themselves up to others? Or, you know, what is the case? So not to say that it's only showing up in one way, but I also think that you actually have to work to find spaces. I don't want to say other, because it's not other.
Right.
Um, and again, it's just a matter of what's out there. Where are you located? What's around you? You know, what is your affiliation in your community? What does that look like? Who are you being told are the leaders in your community of these topics? You know, for some people that looks like one thing, and for some people it looks like a completely different thing. You know, and so being on West Side LA, that you know, that's one generalization, but you know, maybe for someone in New Orleans, that's a very different perspective completely.
Right.
You know? So,
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it, is to see it from, yeah, just you voiced it really well. I can't even okay, so thoughts on the diversity of wellness panels and how they seem to focus on certain demographics. I'm curious to know what, I know I asked for questions at the end, but I guess we are actually kind of winding towards the end of our topics. So I just want to get some clarity from Jasmine on what you're voicing in that comment. Thoughts on the diversity of wellness panels, and how they seem to focus on certain demographic. Yeah, I mean, do you do you have clarity on that comment? What she's
Say,
asking? Can you see it? The thoughts. Oh, okay. So it's just the comment is thoughts on the diversity of wellness panels or the lack of diversity. Got it. And how they seem to focus on certain demographics. Yeah, I definitely think this is a good conversation to kind of dive into because I'm kind of, because of our society right now, what is really present in the dialogue and the conversation, it's now a little bit more in the forefront. But yeah, it's like, how do we, I think too, like this is something I'm inquiring with you as a collective, being in this, we do have more of this a rainbow space of culture. How do we continue to show up and show the value of coming from these different, demographics and speaking on topics of, because also I think part of, for me, the inquiry is in the decolonizing is like, how do we also work with and partner and or have conversations with other businesses or brands who create in the wellness space, but they create from a price point that it won't be accessible, right? Like, how do we kind of bridge there, like those conversations with those that are creating, product oriented type of things, and not just going for complete like commoditization of one industry, but also bringing that more into accessibility, like,
mm-hmm. Which I know from a business standpoint can be challenging because you obviously have financial goals that you need to meet and you want to make it profitable and be able to thrive, for oneself and for everyone being supported under that umbrella, right?
mm-hmm.
So it does take some amount of creativity and, where can you get sponsorships and where can you get funding and where can you get, et cetera, other things to help support that financial piece so that your price point can be available for the masses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it does take a lot of work because you could very much straightforward look at something and say, okay, here's my cost. So we're going to double or triple that. And, that's going to be, what we extended out to for customers, which I think is a very standard philosophy on how you price something.
Yeah.
But there can be so many other factors that influence that. And I think that's where, as a business person, you have to really get creative. I don't think that model is truly the best of service. I believe from a mathematical perspective that you have to have, X equal X and get things paid. However, again, I think you do have to get creative in terms of, how can we adapt? How can we attract? How can we, be in more people's pockets? How can we be in more people's homes and be accessible to other people? And so I think you definitely start that for sure. And I think there's a lot more work for us as a group and for many others out there who I think some are maybe just starting to explore for the very first time, even though, some companies have been in business for decades. But then I think there's those who are very much closed-minded. They, this is what it is. And if they don't like it, then so be it, be on their way. And this is just who we serve. And so, I would rather choose to be a part of something that embraces more people, more diversity on a variety of levels, not just racial diversity, but diversity, all of it. So that's just where my heart lies. I would rather work. And it seems that energy and that opinion is also, is not just of myself, but obviously of more and more people who are showing up and speaking out right now. So,
Yeah.
And in terms of the wellness platforms and panels and what we're typically seeing, You know, I mean, yeah, I want to go back to again what I was saying in terms of who it is that you're actually connecting with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think that's one big piece of it. Um, you know, so it's, I think it kind of goes back to sponsorship and viewing and viewership. You know, who are you exposing yourself to, but then also who are they being supported by, sponsored by, and who are they reaching out to? And so, you know, do you want to align yourselves in those spaces, or would you rather align yourself in different spaces? And so I think that we not only as wellness providers, practitioners, in the wellness industry, that we have to consider where we want our name and our energy, our services displayed, um, you know, and consider who is it that we're reaching. You know, granted, our goal is to be successful and we want to reach as many people as possible, but at the same time, have to consider there's much more to consider. You know, it's not just the dollar value, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
It's really layered. It's all those things that you mentioned, and then seeing if they align in terms of how you operate in that way.
right,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. You have to sit down with yourself and what are your, you know, kind of go back, what are your core values? Who do you want to serve? Who is your ideal client? Um, and really break it down to those foundational pieces and really take a look at what is it that you wish to achieve for your business and for your, you know, for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And in some ways too, that, you know, this area is kind of a healing space in its own way, because if we do want to create new, we really have to see what doesn't work, and then, like you said, consider these different layers, so that way when we're kind of bringing all the ideas together and brainstorming, and those in that circle, voices being heard on how to create and move it and actually make it an operating business. um, you know, it's kind of like in some ways a healing space, because it's like, what are our experiences with other models that we felt really just taken advantage of, or, you know, used from, and all of that, and then how do you move into a new space and being open and trusting, and we don't have all the answers, right? Because it's like we don't necessarily have a model to follow in that sense, because it's like, okay, we know the things that we don't want present, we know the things that we do want present. Now, coming together and creating the masterpiece together, we don't have a clear, always the clear path forward. It's in the mess, right? Do you feel that way about kind of creating something new like this? And
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there are some who have done a great job in a variety of wellness industries. I think there are definitely some who are standing out in my mind overall, but it is still a fairly new concept. And I think that we also have to be forgiving of ourselves that sometimes we're just still trying to find the clarity. And so that may mean that we don't necessarily get it right the first time, or that might mean that not necessarily get it right, but maybe we want to continue to tweak and continue to alter and modify as we go along, which is just the nature of business. It, you know, if you want to continue to thrive and stay afloat, you have to continually adapt. So I think things continually have to shift. Um, you know, so you can, I think we have to return to those foundational pieces and those healing pieces on a regular and consistent basis.
yeah, it's kind of revisiting the core values, and if they're continuing to show up in the ways that that organization is expressing through and offering and sharing in the world and showing up for each other in the space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like the next version. It's like, okay, is this version, what version are we on, right? And
Right.
being okay with iterating through and not feeling that sense of it needs to be perfect to go, right? Getting stuck in the process, because it really is in some way a bigger creative process, coming together and collaborating and building something new together.
Right. Right.
It's amazing.
Time, that's also not an opportunity to find excuses for mistakes, because some people might say, oh, well, I just didn't get it right the first time. And, you know, you still have to do the work, right?
Mm.
It's the time and actually do the work. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
doing the work, inner and outer. Is there anything as we're kind of winding in that you would like to kind of close on and say that maybe wasn't shared over the last kind of topics that you wanted to just have present in this conversation?
I think I would just like to re-emphasize really tuning into oneself, or to one's guide, whether that be God, spirit, universe, Allah, whatever the case. I believe that truth and answers and peace and love truly is out there. And I don't mean out there, I actually here with ourselves. I believe that we just have to truly look and be able to not be afraid to live and to speak from that truth. Um, whether that's in the role of a mom, or whether that's in the role of a business person, or whether that's in the role of partner, or whatever hat we on in that moment. um, I just, again, just really want to emphasize really speaking and living from your truth and the true essence of who we are.
Yeah, I mean it's a beautiful note to end on and kind of come back into self and coming from that place and connecting through. Thank you so much, Nicole, for your time. And for those of you who are watching that want to connect with Nicole, her IG is MRS, Ms. Dancing Moon. And Nicole she shares her work there, but Nicole's also a member of the Home Collective. And as we are moving towards our launch, which is coming up in August, we are starting to offer daily rhythm practices and connecting inside the app. So we will be doing these tea times over the next few weeks, and then we're going to actually be making the dive more inside the app. And then one last thing that I did want to mention for those of you that would like to share the home community platform with the teachers in your life, we are now, we just really felt compelled to support, our children's teachers and other teachers out there as we moving through this uncertainty, because they've really taken on another load and role that I can't even fathom what it's like to navigate that piece. But we're offering a 1-year gifted membership to teachers now through August 1st, and it will include 3 group support circles for teachers specifically. So please feel free to share. It's linked in the bio to send them over to join through the Teachers Initiative. So we just want to show our appreciation and honor the teachers in our lives. And we are also offering a free membership. Well, we have a free community space, but our offerings are right now free until we move to launch. So please join us in the home app and connect with us over there. So thank you so much, Nicole. I'm so happy to see your face, and I do hope to see you in real life some point soon. But thanks for taking the time and having these much needed discussions and diving into the work that you do. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Bye.